Verse, and today I'm just going to do a quick video. March 21st, the day that I'm filming, is my second Booktube birthday, and so I'm going to do the Booktube birthday tag created by Average Joe Reads. I'm just reflecting on the year since I did my last Booktube birthday tag, and it's kind of like a rehash of the New Year's book tag in terms of talking about goals and stuff, but I still think it's like a good check-in. So I already said the first question, how many years I've been on Booktube. Second question is, what has kept you motivated to continue making videos? I think it's probably the same as last year. It's just like the discussion that I'm having with viewers and other booktubers. I really like videos where I get to like work with other people and bounce ideas off other people. Those are the ones that feel the most rewarding to me. Next question is, what are 3 of your favorite videos you've made in the past year and why? So my New Year's book tag I really liked. I thought my intro was a lot of fun. I just tried something new and I felt like it worked out well. And then another video would be the Black Trauma in Books panel that I hosted. That was one that I really liked because I could have just like made a video like talking about what I think about the current discourse, but I think that would have honestly been kind of boring. I think that people brought like a perspective that I definitely wouldn't have been able to bring in terms of talking about more on like the clinical side. What does trauma look like from the perspective of how the gender of the author seems to affect how their work is treated or labeled, in terms of thinking like the international implications of this conversation. And for people who've been on the online bookish community longer, like what has the iteration of the discussion look like? People on the panel were Jerry, who's a booktuber at Onyx Pages, Kiki, who's a bookstagrammer at If This Is Paradise, Harley, who's a blogger at Cerebral Hedonist. They also have a booktube channel, and Bree, who's a booktuber at The Lock Petition. I think it was well received. I was very nervous because I hadn't moderated anything before. It's funny how much energy it feels like it takes to just sit and listen and like being attentive. Like I felt like I wasn't really doing anything during the conversation, which was by design. I was just there to moderate. But at the end I was like kind of tired. It was something that was like tiring and also very energizing because it was like for me a proof that like working with other people is something where it really, the end product really is greater than the sum of its parts, and that these are people that I might not ever be able to meet in person, but like we're still able to like meet online and have a conversation is pretty cool. And also just in terms of like being proactive and stuff, like I think that if you're online it's kind of easy to be reactive and like fall into certain conversations. And if it's just like the same conversation every time and nothing new is being added, it can be like frustrating if you've been sitting through it like a couple times. And just like that was kind of a reminder that like you can be more active in like hosting the conversations that you do want to have, which is something for me that I think highlights why amateur reviewers are so important. I guess like just the democratizing of who can share their opinion and how they can share it and where they can share it. And it was kind of funny because I've really only been on book Twitter for like a year, if that. And Harley's been on the bookish internet for like a lot longer. So I've really only sat through this conversation cycle like maybe 2 or 3 times. And Harley's like, this conversation cycle is a lot older than that. And like even the conversation that we were having in the chat has probably already been had at this point. I think it was Kiki brought up that like, this is like a conversation that mostly happens on like Twitter. Like they're mostly on Instagram and they don't really see that same conversation happening on Instagram. They don't really see that same conversation happening outside the US. And so it's kind of silly to feel like I, thought this was like a big thing to talk about when it's like really just like a very niche part of the internet having the conversation. And so I think that was kind of like funny and humbling, and also like did take the pressure off in some ways. And then my last video is Space Between Worlds, the review I did. It was just like a bigger moment in terms of it was an arc that I really wanted, and I got it when I requested it, and I felt like my thumbnail looked really nice, and I felt like I did a good job at getting my review edited down and like out at a good time. Next question is, what have you struggled with on Booktube in the past year, and how did you overcome that struggle? So I don't think I really overcame it. I think it's just going to be like a work in progress for as long as I'm doing it, or as long as the pandemic goes on, and that is just like resting. I kind of think I've talked about this in other reflection videos, but I feel like I'm always on. I think especially because with the pandemic, booktube stuff and like book Twitter stuff is kind of like my main form of social interaction outside of like talking to my family. And the way it is, it just feels like it's taking up all my free time. Like even if I'm like not doing booktube stuff. Like, it's like I'm feeling guilty that I'm not doing booktube stuff, or like worrying about doing booktube stuff. Like, for reference, I have like scripts for like 10 videos made up, and it's just like weighing on me that I don't really know when they're all going to get out. And it's weird because even if I'm like on, it's not necessarily getting me anything right. I'm not necessarily always starting conversations with people based on what I post on Twitter. And I'm kind of at a point right now where like I have like a couple more ARC reviews that I know I have to get out. And I kind of don't want to do reviews right now. I kind of just want to get like 12 middle grades out from the library and just read middle grade and decompress and just take a big reading break. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do that until like mid-May or June. So I just need to be more honest with myself about when I need to rest, and like more like proactive about being like, this is booktube time. This is your time to be online and fiddle around. And then after that, you're just going to get off the computer and you're going to do something else. Okay, next question is, choose one moment from the past year on booktube that you would love to relive. I don't really have anything I'd want to relive. I feel like everything is like stressful and then it feels good and I'm glad it's done. Like, I don't necessarily want to re-experience it. I'll say that some highlights for me were being a panelist at FIACon 2020. That was a big accomplishment. I was very honored that they asked me to be on a panel talking about being an amateur reviewer. I was asked to announce the fantasy category for the Shaded Choice Awards. The Shaded Choice Awards are Reader's Choice Awards created by Jasmine of Part of My Imagination, Princess of Castle Library, and Ashley, and it was like an award that I was very happy to see created. It was an award that I really wanted to do well, and so I was very honored that they asked me to announce the fantasy category. And another achievement was creating the Black SFF-a-thon. It is a readathon that happens in October, where we're reading speculative fiction, so science fiction, fantasy, and some horror written by Black authors. This year's iteration is going to be from October 3rd to October 16th. Announcements are coming down the line for that. But that was a big deal. I did really want to create a readathon, and it was great to have that out in the world, have my wonderful co-hosts and Jerry of Onyx pages, Arlene of Lock Pressed Books, Lucy of Lucy Reads, and Nori of Chronicles of Noria give their ideas and their energy and help bring that to fruition. It was really great seeing the participant response. Next question is, shout out a huge supporter of your channel, T. Morgan. T. Morgan comments on like every video. T. Morgan doesn't even really like science fiction and fantasy like that. Like, but she's still here and she still watches, and I really appreciate that. I think we finally found her a book that she's interested in, which is The Conductors by Nicole Glover. So, a huge shout out to T. Next question is, what's the best book you've read in this past year? For this one, I just pulled all the 5 stars from my Goodreads, because there's something different about all of them. You know, you can never ask a reader for like the best book or their favorite book, you know. But one is a comic, Black Star by Eric A. Glover, with art by Ariel Jovellanos, which is a sci-fi thriller comic, which is coming out this year. It was a lot of fun to read. They're stranded on this like alien planet and they're trying to find this like very valuable resource and get back to the lone escape pod to get back to Earth to sell it. The characters are so cutthroat and so diabolical, and I couldn't wait to see what they're going to do next. Then there's Bayou Magic, which is a middle grade contemporary fantasy by Jewel Parker Rhodes. It has a mermaid in it. The writing in Bayou Magic was just so poetic. It's not something that I see a whole lot in middle grade. I think it is still very accessible for younger readers, but also the descriptions were just beautiful. There's nature, there's a lot of tropes I just really like coming of age in a forest, stuff like that. Death of Vivek Oji by Kweke Mezi, which is a contemporary. His parents find him dead on their doorstep, and it's about how he died and how he lived. Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, which is about a world with a demonic forest, and it was very gruesome and it was very great. Legendborn, a contemporary YA fantasy by Tracy Dion, about a secret Arthurian society at UNC Chapel Hill. Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin, set in an Egyptian-inspired fantasy world about political upheaval, justice, and faith. And finally, Hide and Seeker by Dacre Herman, which was a fantastic middle grade horror that came out in 2020. Hide and Seeker is about this supernatural entity that really doesn't like small children who cheat at the game of hide and seek, and it's about the terror that this entity reeks on a group of kids. So yeah, I really liked all those in their own way. I think I am getting a little bit more into horror and gore this year. I'm finding out more about like what I like about gore and what types of horror I really enjoy, and that's been a fun experience. I'm hoping to do more learning and growing in my reading tastes. The last question is, where do you see your channel in a year's time, and what do you hope to have achieved? I said in my New Year's book tag that I really am trying to be focused on like community and collaboration, because that is like what keeps me motivated. That's what makes me excited to get on my channel. And so I want to try and keep that at the forefront. There are things that come with subscribers and views and stuff like that. And I appreciate the people who have enjoyed my content enough to recommend me to others. I appreciate people who have been letting me know what they think of my videos, who've been liking, who've been subscribing and watching and all that. But it's easy to feel bad about yourself if you're like not at a certain subscriber count at a certain time frame. Like looking at your engagement relative to people with the same subscriber count to you. And I just don't want to be thinking about myself like in comparison to other people or like in competition with other people. I just want to focus on like what are the experiences I have on my channel that make me want to keep making videos. What type of videos do my subscribers seem to get the most out of? What do they most want to talk about with me? I think that like the panels and the lives have been really good for that. And so I do want to get more creative with those moving forward. And I think I would like to get a place where like I could maybe get like multiple authors on a panel. That would be really awesome. I don't know. I was just thinking of FireCon where like you can pitch programming panels, but I think they also get a lot of pitches. So like program is really tight. And with FireCon or like if I was to get boosted by a con or some other channel, it would be great in terms of like the audience I would have, but also it is a little harder for me to interact with viewers. Also, like I don't want to feel like I have to like wait on someone to give me permission to do something, like if there are authors who are like fine chatting with other authors, like with me moderating, like that'd be great. And I think I'd like to get a point where like I feel comfortable moderating that type of conversation with like two strangers. I like to have my platform at a point where authors feel comfortable that like I'm gonna like do a good job moderating comments and discussion, and that it's like worth their time to come on my channel, like that it is gonna like give them a chance to talk about their writing in a unique way that they might not be able to get to talk about in a different venue. So yeah, that's a tag. I'm sorry. I don't even really remember what my Booktube birthday is. I almost forgot it, even though I put it in my calendar. So I don't know whose is coming up, but if yours is coming up, feel free to do the tag. Feel free to tag me in it and let me know because I would love to see it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. Spring is coming, at least in PA, finally. I hope you're enjoying the sun. The temps aren't quite there yet, but it is looking nicer outside. So I hope you're enjoying the change in weather. I hope you're enjoying your books, and I hope you're doing well in general. Goodbye.